I've achieved agentic control of an entire iPhone fleet. So 22 devices. We can enter a specific market, generate the accounts for that market, actually generate helpful content, and we've achieved incredible character consistency and realism.
Can take off, take off. Can take off, take off.
Welcome back to the sprint. All right, this week we'll be going over the updated onboarding flow, influence campaigns, and how I agentically control my fleet of iPhones. So hopping directly into the onboarding, the core issue that I identified through this process was that we were really asking for money before showing the value of the app. At the end of the day, like no duh, of course, only 1 in 11 are converting to a paid user. Through this process, I redesigned the flow, did some competitive analysis, and tried to basically present the value of the app before asking for money. So currently, the paywall fires before we've given them anything. So a bunch of slides, sign up form, we hit them with everything without really showing the core value. And the reason why I fell into that kind of pit was because when I was building it, I had this context of all of the marketing that we were doing. So I just sort of assumed that the users, when they were downloading it, would have context of the app. I did some competitive analysis, and this is Wanderlog versus Tripsy. And the tools that I use for this are Claude, Mobbin and their MCP server, and Paper. So basically, I identified the flows in Mobbin, presented that to Claude, and had it use the MCP server to pull all of the individual screens, recreate the flows in Paper, and allowed me to see like visually the flows and how they compared with each other. So first up is Tripsy, and it's basically 7 screens, 1 flow, paywall off the jump. So like they don't mess around from showing like the start to they're pretty quick. On the opposite side of the spectrum is Wanderlog, where they have 16 screens of social proof, account creation, questions, and then they go into 13 additional screens and show all of these comparison charts and things of the different levels before asking for money. Basically try to build as much context before kicking off the first trip, and this caused a ton of churn. There was a lot of people that just weren't even signing up, not going pro, but just not even signing up because there were so many screens. And this was a good learning experience for me because at the end of the day, I wanted the best trips to be created for the users. And so I needed all of this context. However, people weren't ready for that. They just wanted trips sooner. And this really drastically improved the conversions to paid users. However, it's still only 1 in 11. So what we've already learned basically is making the travel profile optional, raise the conversions. So the fix really isn't asking for more before the paywall. Wanderlog's pattern just doesn't work for our users. So what we ended up with, a dumbed down version of the planning process, selects one of these pre-canned destinations. What kind of trip is it? How long are they going? The research occurs. And then, so basically the research occurs and then the trip is displayed to the user before we ask them to convert. And I did this by only allowing 12 destinations along with 88 variants and included 2,300 real places. This makes the process kind of deterministic, and also it shows the value of the app. All right, so moving on to influence campaigns. So if you followed the sprint, you understand that influence campaigns are definitely like the #1 driver for downloads for the app. So we're bringing a lot of that in-house to where we're presenting actual travel content along with CTAs to download the app amongst a ton of travel content. However, we are going to be doing this through AI UGC using our own internal tool that is already generating content, and we're just kind of making a platform out of it to where we can enter a specific market, generate the accounts for that market, actually generate helpful content and not just spam, right? So like helpful niche down accounts per market that we enter. And we've achieved incredible character consistency and realism, and it's super exciting. And the last topic kind of update is the agentic iOS fleet. What does that mean? I have achieved agentic control of an entire iPhone fleet, so 22 devices, and this really started at a core level of needing system level testing between notifications, apps, and Series, and ended up being able to agentically control iOS devices really at scale. And this is a preview into the lab where there's just like tons of devices, tons of nodes, tons of hosts, and really starting to scale this up. How did this all happen and how does it work? Well, we have Takeoff the app and we have a device. So typically like testing is like either in the simulator or on device, maybe test flight. As the iOS platform kind of evolves to support more agentic flows via Siri or iOS kind of matures and supports app integrations throughout the platform. And like, I don't even know if integrations is the right word, but for instance, like Siri intents or notifications or these like cross-platform flows that may touch iMessage and then may touch your individual app, but then may kick off something in a partner app. There's all of these different things that need to be tested, and current testing platforms don't support that. And so this entire process sort of evolved where I was testing on device, and then I needed to test on iMessages and then maps. And then I really found myself needing a system level control of all of these various items in order to successfully test the app. And then there's this element of sharing. So when your iPhone apps become multiplayer, you need to be able to test deterministically that a feature works, like absolute that a feature is working between individuals and devices. And there really isn't anything out there that supports this. So I found myself creating a Mac Mini based host that does on-device inference if needed of understanding what exactly is happening between these two devices at minimum, right? Without sending stuff up to OpenAI or Anthropic and things like that. It's just doing the inference locally. So training them, did thousands of screenshots and some other sauce that I don't want to give out here, but basically Mac Mini host, control multiple devices, and you can kick off test flows between all of these. Now, where it becomes really cool is that you can then turn over this network of hosts and devices to be then controlled agentically, MCP server or REST, and that was kind of fun to uncover. So now I'm scaling across hosts, just like a lot of devices, and the devices can swap between Mac Mini hosts. They all have a parent server that can be controlled by numerous clients from web to agentic control. And what I'm doing now that I really need to get on it is that I have cut all paid content for Takeoff. So all paid acquisition is gone. I'm leaving to Vietnam in 2 weeks, actually less than 2 weeks. Over the course of this next week, I need to wire up the internal tool that I'm calling Relay, connecting Relay to the agents. So we're going to be generating more content like this, which is content that the system is already creating. We're going to be getting it on and posting on across all of our devices with the goal of really driving the downloads of Takeoff. So we will see. I will give you an update next week, and I promise not to skip next week as I did last week. Thank you.
Can take off, take off. take off, take off.
More eyes, more heat.